It's the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame Legends Lounge. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Egan, and this is a really fun project where we're interviewing the recent people that have been elected to the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame, the class of 2019 and 2020. And tonight, like many nights, we have a very special person, somebody who actually worked to build the industry and really shape the way that the U.S. ski team was formed. A binding manufacturer was formed, and on an international level with the FIS. Hank Tauber was a ski coach for two Olympics. He was the owner and the driving force behind Marker Bindings and has worked extensively with FIS. And as always, we kick everything off with Justin, the executive director of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. Justin, how's it going, my friend?
Dan, good. And just scratching the surface there on all the things Mr. Tauber's kind of prodded along over his career, getting sport move forward, getting our athletes on the starting gates, getting everything stage set for things here. So just great to have another great guest, and snow's flying just like it's behind you on the screen here in Ishpeming, Michigan this evening.
Of course, and Hank was so heavily involved with the ski industry and on different aspects of it that really so many people are standing on the foundation that he built when it came to the team, when it comes to manufacturing and the FIS.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this one for sure, Dan.
Absolutely. Let's bring Hank into the conversation. Mr. Hank Tauber, how are you?
Good.
Uh, Congratulations being recently elected into U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. And what a nice honor that is for somebody who had so much impact over so long. Um, you know, it's of course fun to think about as a kid skiing on Marker Bindings, and now talking with you, the man behind sort of the explosion of that brand in the 80s and the 90s.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting time. And of course, that was kind of in the middle of my snow career, so to speak, for 15, 16 years with Marker. We had a lot of good people around the world, and we had a lot of good engineers, and we innovated, and we were able to capture a good share of the market. So it was fun.
More than a good share. When you started, you had 1%.
Yeah, that was about right. Maybe one and a half, somewhere in there. And well, in those days, Solomon and Tyrolia controlled about 90+% of the share of the business. And so we had our work cut out for us. And of course, when we started out initially, we didn't, have any visions of going where we went. It's like in a lot of projects, you do a lot of good work, and a lot of people help, and all of a sudden it works.
We have an image of, I want to show everybody, of Marker in the center. It's where Hank started with the technology, and on the left, it's where he initially took it, and on the right, where it ended up. Hank, when you look at those images, what comes to mind?
Well, number one, a lot of work, a lot of engineering, a lot of really smart people. I'm not an engineer, but I kind of outlined what my expectations for the technology. And then especially in Germany, we had a lot of really, really good people who were able to execute. In 1988, we built a new factory north of Garmisch. At one time, we had about 850 employees there from, I believe, 25 different countries working there, all of the former Eastern European countries. And so it was an exciting time, and we were lucky a little bit, but I think we did a good job, and we made a big difference in the market.
When you think about moving a company like Marker, forward onto the world stage, becoming a dominant player with technology and marketing, what was the magic mix there? I mean, there's so much to think about when it comes to binding and safety and communicating that.
Well, I think one of the things we did is we took a little bit different approach. We felt that we had to service the retailers very well. We were one of the first companies to start an education certification program. You may remember the name Carl Ettlinger. He was way back in the beginning. He was doing articles on bindings and ski safety and things of that nature. And so he inspired us to do certification programs. So we had all around the world, in Japan, in Germany, in Switzerland, of course, in the U.S. was a big effort. We had reps that worked full time for the company, and we developed these retailer relationships, and eventually they started buying more and more of our product, and that's was kind of the magic.
I was a teenager working at the ski market in Boston when those bindings started to come out and have a lot of success, and sitting through the product clinics, learning so much about the company, where it was going to go. How, of course, now prior to getting involved with Marker, you were leading the U.S. ski team, coached at 2 Olympics, and I'm just wondering if that passion for skiing was another element that you brought to Marker and from that aspect and of racing.
Well, it could have been. I mean, obviously, I spent 12 or 13 years with the U.S. team in various capacities, starting in the late 60s. And that was an exciting time in itself. But once I got with Marker, after we got our kind of feet on the ground after the first year, we really went back into ski racing, and I ended up being able to work out agreements with most of the great skiers of that era, from Ingemar Stenmark to Phil and Steve Mayer to Cindy Nelson to on and on, Mark Giardelli, et cetera, et cetera. And so we advertised a lot the performance of our product based on ski racing. And that everyone said at the time, well, people don't really care about ski racing, et cetera. Well, they did, because it was a differentiator for us from everyone else, because we had this great volume. Franz Klammer was among the group, and Debbie Armstrong and Tamara McKinney, and on and on and on. They were really part of the people story that enabled us to move ahead so quickly.
No better example of why somebody like Hank would be elected into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. A visionary, somebody who helped build the industry, and having the foresight to work with legends like that you just named. It's amazing. Tell us a little bit about your time with the U.S. ski team and the evolution of that for you and your career.
Well, I started with the team in the summer of 1966 up in Bend, Oregon, prior to the World Championships in Portillo that year. And I was way down the line. My job was basically to take this 70-pound crowbar and drill holes in the ice so that one of the coaches could put the slalom poles in for the training. But it was a great opportunity to learn. Chuck Ferries was the women's coach at that time. Bob Beatty was the head of the team. And then in the 67, 68, 69 seasons, I was going to graduate school at the University of Colorado. And Bob at the time had asked me if I would run a dryland program for a lot of the women racers who were actually going to be skiing in the Olympics in 1968 in Grenoble. I didn't go there, but a lot of the men were in the CU area, University of Colorado area, Billy Kidd and Jimmy Huga, and et cetera. And so Bob focused on the fall dryland program for them, and I focused on the women's program. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then in the winter was out on the national circuit in the U.S. in 68 and in 69.
Do you remember arriving at the games in 72, and what were you thinking when you pulled into Sapporo?
Well, that was quite an interesting era, I think. What I actually did is I went to Japan in the summer of 1971, and I spent about 3 weeks over there in Sapporo, and I walked all the trails. I walked up and down. The downhill was just being built at the time. It was at Mount Eniwa. Mount Tene was the slalom and giant slalom hill right in town of Sapporo. And I walked all those runs, and I measured the hill and the grade and the gradient and all of that. And it rained most of the time, so I was soaking wet because I had the monsoons or whatever they have over there. So by the time I got there in early February of 1972 with the team, I was pretty much, I pretty was aware of all the culture and the food and where we were going to be training, where we were going to be racing. So I think that was helpful to us.
Wow, I hugely and probably ahead of your time doing that, to that sort of preparation. And then, when you think about the Innsbruck Games, they were legendary as well. And of course, in the hotbed for skiing, Austria.
Yeah, that was an exciting time too. And of course, that was after the Summer Games, I believe, in, let me think now. There were every 4 years. Could have been was Munich when they had issues with where the games were stopped for several days, and they had quite a international incident there. And so by the time in '76 we got to Innsbruck, the Olympic Village was like an armed camp. There were huge fences, 3-meter, 10-foot fences all the way around, a lot of security. That was the first time we had to go through all kinds of security, get into the Olympic Village, out of the Olympic Village. And so it was a different culture. The racers, we were pretty well separated from the public in general. But it was an exciting, games. They had great races there. That was, of course, where Franz Klammer had that wonderful downhill race. And Andy Mill, one of our skiers, who had gotten hurt in a fall a couple of days before the race, but he pulled himself together and ended up 5th by just a very, very small margin, which was at that time one of the best downhill performances of an American skier, the best downhill performance of an American skier in the Olympics. Cindy Nelson won a bronze medal, of course, in the women's downhill. So it was a nice event, and spread out. It was pretty exciting around.
I would say very exciting. And, when I hear you talk about starting off low man on the totem pole, running dry land sessions, and sort of doing your homework in Japan on where you're going, what it was going to be like, and then winning medals as a coach in '76. You got any insight for people who are just starting out in the industry, and what did it take to get to that height at that point in your career? Any insight?
Well, I think one thing is clear is that when I was in the business, it was a lot different than it is today. Today, it's pretty big organizations behind the team. There's skiing much of the year. We started going to Chile to ski in the summertime, and so we started doing some of these things, but it wasn't quite as intense. Today, it's really a full-time professional sport. So I think, basically, if someone wants to coach today, they have to have a lot of passion. They hopefully have a lot of knowledge, and they just have to stay at it for quite some time until you can reach some of the higher levels.
And of course, Justin, another great example of somebody who built the industry, shaped the industry, and formulated to what we have today, echoing through the halls of Ishmael.
Yeah. Again, connectivity. Hey, Dan, we had in the lounge prior to this, Tom Kelly talking on behalf of Hank Tauber and some of the back history of the team. I'm in the library here, which going all the way back to 1904. We have, minutes from every organizational meeting as skiing was starting to get organized. Some of the knowing Hank's full background, or at least what's included in the nomination packet, again, just scratching the surface. Very, very diverse. Hank's been probably one of the most renowned and should get credit for some of the international efforts that have really propelled a lot of the Hall of Famers that he's helped along the way, some of whom he just mentioned, that are also included in the walls here in the Hall of Fame. And Hank, rightfully so, will be joining those athletes and other sport builders. So very cool.
Hank, I wanted to move into your experience with the FIS and all that you've done at the international level. We talked about this with Tom earlier, surrounding Howard Peterson's and his recent election into the Hall of Fame, but just how important it is to sort of have the relationships into the FIS, on behalf of U.S. ski team and the athletes.
Well, yeah, that whole international arena is kind of an interesting field. One advantage I had is my parents were Swiss. They came over in the 30s already to the United States. So when I, was growing up, I was speaking German. So I learned German, and then I learned, Spanish later and French. And so I could speak a lot of languages, which enabled me to kind of network with a lot of the Europeans, and which is very helpful in giving you influence in those organizations. I started first working with the FIS, or being part of the FIS for the U.S. team U.S. Ski Association. In 1969, there was a FIS Congress in Opatija in former Yugoslavia, and I was the U.S. representative on the classification committee. And I did that for 2 or 3 years, and then I moved to the World Cup committee, and then I moved eventually to the Alpine committee, and then the Alpine executive board, and then eventually in 1988 to the FIS council, where you get elected by the whole membership, and became a council member and one of the vice presidents. And kind of fortunate that I became very close to Mark Kodler, who was for 40 some years the president of the FIS. And also at that time got to know Gianfranco Casper, who is currently the president. He's going to be stepping down now in the spring of 21. He's been, that'll be 20 years as president, or 22 actually, 22.
That's again another amazing climb, and so much would have happened during that time period. But when you think about the World Cup races that happened in Park City, Beaver Creek, of course, Vail, Aspen, now Killington, talk just about the importance of the relationship from the U.S. team level with the International Association.
Well, it took quite a bit of work. That started actually back when Bob Beatty was running the team. And in the middle 60s, we brought, initially we didn't have World Cup races here, but we had what we call the international team races in Vail in 1965 and 66. And then Bob, along with Serge Lang and Sepp Sulzberger and from Austria, Honoré Bonnet from France, those 4 guys during the World Ski Championships in Chile in August of 1966, came up with the idea of having a World Cup in skiing in which a few races would be tied together, initially 3 downhills, 3 slaloms, 3 giant slaloms, and name a season-long World Cup champion. And that happened after the 67 season. So then, of course, we had to, being a part of the international circuit, we started coming to the U.S. every year, every other year initially, and now, of course, it's kind of a stop on the international tour.
Of course, I believe the first World Cup was held at Cannon Mountain in New Hampshire. John Claude Keeley was there.
Yes, I was there too. Yep, 67. Jimmy Huga had a great slalom race there. I don't recall today whether he either won or was second, one of the U.S. skiers. So, yeah, I remember it was really cold.
Never cold in Franconia Notch, New Hampshire, but when you think about this and you think about those routes and what a circus, the White Circus they call it now, could you foresee that happening? From those humble beginnings to what it is now at the international level?
Well, no, you never can. I don't think you really can envision things are going to become such a major circuit with so much money involved today. It's a little bit like the Grand Prix car circuit. I mean, that used to be a limited 6-7 races a year, and now there's 20 some, and there's billions of dollars involved. That's not ski racing, but in our own little world, it's kind of exploded similar to that, or like the big tennis tournaments that are around the world now today and things of that nature. So television's made a big difference, sponsorship has made a big difference, and of course the athletes are spending full time doing this, and so the performance level of the athletes are way, way, way above, what they were 40 years ago. Equipment has changed. It's a dangerous sport though, alpine skiing, and ski jumping is also a dangerous sport. So, it takes a lot of work and a lot of talent to be great.
Absolutely. And when you think about these 3 areas of life where you've had major success with the U.S. ski team, marker bindings, FIS, how would you sum up sort of your management style and your approach to the projects and the people?
Well, I think one thing you need to do everywhere is you need to have excellent people working with you. One of the advantages I had when I was coaching is I happened to be in an era when we had all kinds of really, really talented athletes coming into the program. Obviously, you had Marilyn Cochran and Barbara Cochran and Bobby Cochran and their sister Lindy, that their dad had done such a wonderful job preparing. You had, Kiki Cutter, Judy Noggle, the Mayers. I mean, these were people that came out of good local programs. They were really, really, really good skiers, and they had the mental ability to compete at a top level. And you can't take that for granted. I mean, people, talk about the U.S. ski team. It has its ups, its downs, its ups, its downs. You really can't train a world-class skier to be a world-class winner. And so the athlete brings almost all of that to the party. And you can help them manage their life and their training and their travel and race day preparation and things of that nature. But all the great ones I've worked with, they would have done well, anyway. I mean, they were really exceptional people, and the results are evidence of that.
As are yours, my friend, as are yours. And I think that's a great message, have people around you equal or better than yourself for that success. When you think about the sort of the lineage of your career, there's obviously a common thread, but really some diversity too. Has it been fun?
Oh, it's been really exciting. Yeah, and it's been, if I think back to when I got involved in ski racing, was 50 plus years ago, 66, 67. And then the various phases that I've been in as I've traveled along, and I'm still involved, very involved with the FIS today. I'm on a group called the FIS Succession and Future of the FIS Advisory Board. There's about 6 of us that are, meeting all the time to discuss, where the organization should go next. So I'm still quite involved in the snow business, in the snow sport. Still on the board of the U.S. ski team, I've been for quite some time. And time really flies. Having this discussion is quite interesting because it really puts things in perspective that it's been most of my life I've been really engaged in this effort, which has been wonderful.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And again, congratulations to the election to the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. For this discussion, the FIS is a very diverse organization just by the sheer number of different events that it oversees, right? I mean, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, there's I think between 5,000 and 6,000 competitions in a winter season, which is basically 5 months, 6 months that they manage. And so you figure that out over whatever the number of days it is, 150 days. And so there is literally dozens of competitions between freestyle and Nordic and cross country and jumping and alpine, freestyle, snowboard, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big organization today with a big budget. Each of the tours is run by professional people who are on snow at the major events. And then, of course, you have literally hundreds of thousands of people that are volunteers, that are gatekeepers and starters and people in all the small areas all around the world. And so, yeah, it's a big organization today.
Absolutely. And, Marker is an amazing brand, even today. And I wonder, when you think about Marker surviving as a brand, rooted in the foundation that you brought to it, what sort of pride that brings for you?
That was an exciting time when I was working with that company. And I got to know Hannes Marker in the 60s through ski racing. And then when I got out of ski racing at the end of the 70s and the early 80s, he came to me and asked if I would like to get involved with a U.S. company. And then one thing led to the other, and I took over the whole company in 1984. None of that was expected. I was pretty lucky, and I was in the right place at the right time, and then was able to assemble an outstanding team of people who created the brand, which is still strong today. I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, you must be. And I like the fact that you brought up that, you spoke German, you learned, Spanish and other languages. How important was it that you had sort of what I'd call the European mindset mixed with the American work ethic?
Well, obviously, I think, in retrospect, that was probably one of the key efforts. I mean, I was living in Germany 8, 9, 10 months a year for 15 years. So I was there all the time, and which also helped me on the FIS side. This is after I stopped coaching. So I was able to do 2 things over there, make a lot of relationships, keep those relationships fresh. And so I hope it made a contribution to the sport.
Absolutely did. And what's the winter plans for skiing, Hank?
Well, I was out skiing on Sunday, actually, a couple of days ago here in Park City. Took a few runs. It's a different environment than we've been in before. You have to make a reservation to get up on the hill. on the Epic Pass. Vail owns Park City now. They elect your pass for that day. So you go there, they scan. It's good skiing. We don't have a lot of snow here in Utah at the moment, but it's been cold, so they made a lot of man-made. There's one run open from top to bottom, and there was a lot of people there. I think they're letting me 40% capacity on the hill at the moment, and obviously people wearing masks and social distancing and all of that. And so it was a great day. We spent 2 or 3 hours skiing. We had a lot of fun.
Still make you feel like a kid?
Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, and for me, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You go up and ski, and I've been doing it forever, so you don't really forget. And then, of course, I'm also on the board of Powder Corporation, which is my hat here, you can see. And we have a lot of properties around, from Mount Bachelor to Snowbird to Copper Mountain to Killington and a whole bunch in between. The area you mentioned earlier, Eldora, is also one of our portfolio companies. They started skiing a week ago, I think today. A week ago Monday. And so, yeah, we just have to have a lot of protocols in place this year because of the current situation. We hope maybe by the spring things will be more normal.
Justin, every guest in the Legends Lounge makes me feel lazy. How about you?
Well, yeah. They were all always in the right place at the right time, hey Dan, and didn't do a whole bunch, but just happened to pull off these amazing careers. And again, you hear things like Eldora and Copper Mountain, so you could get on a whole nother. We could talk with Hank here probably for another hour just about Chuck and Penny Lewis and some of the stuff that they did for the industry, which again, 90% of our listeners or viewers may not know who Chuck Lewis is, but same with people that are behind the scenes just cranking all the time, Dan, for whatever it is the prerogative is. It usually has something to do with skiing and keeping the industry alive. And it was so interesting to hear, Hank, the focus on racing and taking that back, because why wouldn't you, right? Everybody wants to be on every girl wants what Tamara McKinney's got her feet strapped to on the skis, of course. So just amazing having you, Hank, and getting to know you a little bit. Congrats again from our side here in Ishpeming too.
Well, thank you very much. I'm pleased to be part of the organization there now, and look forward to seeing everybody soon.
It's going to be great, Hank. Thanks for joining us and hanging out here in the Legends Lounge. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a nice evening. Bye.
Okay, and we'll be back with more as we continue this series of the Legends Lounge with the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.